What's up everybody, welcome back. So part 3 of our Guard AI tutorial, and we have a little bit of setup left to do, unfortunately. So we're going to set up the perception component in this video and set up the side sense that we're going to work with. So if you already followed the turret series, then this might be pretty familiar, but it's just a little bit of basic setup that we need to do, and also add a little bit of optimization for the side sense in there. So yeah, let's just get into it. This is probably one of the last videos where we're actually doing setup work, and after that we're gonna start adding a little bit of behavior and simply expand on things afterwards. So let's dive into it. If you want to get your hands on the project files, you can become a member of the YouTube channel or become a Patreon, and then you will get access to premium channels in the Discord and also a download for the project files. And if you don't want to become a member, you can still hop in the Discord and check out the free projects that are available to download, or just chat with other game devs. So let's dive into today's video. As you may have noticed in the intro, I have increased the size of the level a little bit. So this is not actually needed, but it's just a little bit more convenient, especially if you use the third-person character. If you want to get out of the sight range, the camera boom keeps bumping into the walls and things like that. So all I did is increase the level size, and if you do so, make sure you also increase your navigation mesh so it still covers your entire level and your AI can actually walk everywhere. And so that's just a little side note. Now let's start looking at setting up our perception component, and we want to set that up in our AI controller. So we need to create an AI controller first. So let's right click, go to blueprint class, and for all classes we're going to search for the AI controller. So we simply want to select the normal one, this one over here, and create it. Let's call this our BPGDR AI controller, something like that. Before we actually open up the controller, we want to open up our character, and inside of the character we need to assign the controller. So that's under the pawn settings. If we go all the way down over here in the class defaults, under pawn we have the AI controller class. So we want to change that to the new controller that we just created. And I'm also going to set auto possess AI to both placed in the world or spawned. So make sure you change these two, and then we are good to go to set up the controller. So let's compile and save the character, open up our controller, and what we want to do in here is add our perception component. So we're going to go to the components, add one component, and look for perception. With the component added, we can set it up on the right side over here, and we want to add a sense. So we're going to start with the side sense, and we're going to add other senses later in the series. So let's click the little plus sign over here, and then we can specify what sense we want to use. So let's select the side sense over here. Then we can expand it even further, and we can set up some defaults over here. So I'm going to decrease the side radius, so it's just a little bit easier to test. So I'm going to set it to 1500 and then 2000 for the loose side radius. So the peripheral vision half angle degrees, we can just leave it at 90 degrees or play around with it, whatever you prefer. So that's just the view cone of the actual AI. Then we want to expand detection by affiliation and make sure that we enable all three of them. So we need to enable all three to make sure all actors get perceived. In C++ you might be able to leave this out, but for blueprints we need to enable it. And now we are pretty much good to go, so we don't need to worry about any of the other stuff. And we can actually test this. So what we want to do to test it is set up our gameplay debugger probably. So let's compile and save our controller, and we want to go to edit project settings, and in here we have a tab called gameplay debugger. So this is a pretty useful tool, although the default keybind doesn't work in my case, so that might not be the case for you, but I need to change it to something else, otherwise it doesn't work. So I'm going to put it to my numpad divide key, and then we should be good. So what we're going to do now is simply hit play, and then I'm going to enable the gameplay debugger. So hit numpad divide, and then we can enable all kind of categories on the top left using our numpad keys. So as you can see, number 5 is the perception category. So if I enable that one, you will see the sight perception working. So the AI is actually perceiving me because we have the little sphere around me. And if I walk out of this purple range, he will stop seeing me. So that's the loose sight range. And if I walk into the green circle again, he starts perceiving me. So then we have the peripheral half cone vision angle. So that's the line over here. So that's simply the view cone of the AI. We have it set to 90, so it has 180 degrees vision around him. So at this point, we want to take a look at a little bit of optimization for the sight perception. So currently all actors will be perceived. So the AI will also perceive other AI actors, for example. And you might end up with a whole lot of information that you don't actually need. So what we're going to do is make sure that the perception only perceives actors that have the perception stimuli component. And to do that, we need to change something in our DefaultGame.ini file. So first of all, let's make sure we have the entire project saved. Then I'm going to right click and go to Show in Explorer. So we're somewhere in our project files. Close the project in the editor. And then we want to go to the root folder of the project, open the config folder, and then open your DefaultGame.ini. So let me grab that in here. And what we want to do in here is add 2 lines. So let me copy paste them in here. So this is what we want to add: script AI module AI sense sight auto register all pawns as sources is false. So this will make sure that we don't automatically perceive all pawns. So I'm going to paste this in the description of the video as well. Make sure you add these 2 lines to the default game.ini, not the default engine.ini. And then we can save it and get rid of this file and simply reopen the project again. So it's opening on my other monitor. So something is actually happening. Stay with me. There we are. And now after we edit this and we hit play again and open our debugger, then we are not perceived anymore. So now we need to make sure that the perception system knows that we are an actor that it actually needs to perceive. So to do that, we're going to go to our player character, the third person character. And in here, we're going to add a component as well. So look for perception, but this time we're going to add the perception stimuli source. And this component makes us register with the sight perception. So on the right side, we want to set up auto register as source enabled. And then we're going to add a sense over here to the sources. And that's going to be our sight sense. So click this one. Now we can compile and save it. And if we test this again, now we should be perceived again by the system. So here we are. Now we are actually back in game. So by doing this, we make sure that we don't get all bunch of unnecessary information about actors that we don't want to perceive. Okay, so with that setup, let's add a guard spot for the AI in the level so we can test a little bit of movement, and then we are pretty much done for today. I want to create a blueprint that we can add to the level so the guard has an actor to return to if we investigated a location. So that's kind of going to be the guard spot for the actor. And I'm going to create a folder in here to store all those kinds of blueprints. So let's create a new folder first and call this blueprints. Open it up, and in here I'm going to create a new blueprint class, and that's going to be an actor. So I'm going to call this my blueprint GDR guard spot, for example, and open it up. So all we need to do in here is make sure that we can see this actor, so it doesn't really need to contain any code or something. What I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to create a scene component, and that's going to be the root, and replace the default scene root. Then I'm going to add an arrow component so I can see which way this guard spot is facing. So also tell which way the guard should be facing. So I'm going to move the arrow up a little bit so it's not inside the ground. And then the last thing I'm going to add is a billboard so we can see it in game a little bit better. So simply add a billboard, and for the billboard we can change the little icon that we're using. So we can use the UE4 logo, for example, use whatever you like. So I'm going to shrink it down a bunch and move it up a little. So the UE4 logo is a guard spot. Okay, we can compile and save that, and that's usable. So now we want to open the level, and I'm going to place this guard spot in the level on top of this cube over here. So let's drag it in and make sure that we rotate it so it faces kind of towards the player. But what's more important, if the AI reaches the guard spot, he doesn't need to be in the correct rotation. So we want to make sure that the AI is coming from this side. So we want to rotate this guard spot in a different direction. So then we can make sure that we set up a function to make the AI rotate to the correct rotation. So that's what we're going to do as well, because that's something we are going to be needing quite a lot. So we have this guard spot added, we have it rotated in a different direction than the AI approaching it, probably. So let's compile and save it. And now we want to add a function to our guard to make sure that we can rotate to the correct rotation. So let's open up our guard. And what we're going to do in here, so we are using the turn in place animations that will determine the difference between the base aim rotation and the actor rotation. So the rotation of the character is based on the character yaw. And what we want to do is make sure that our character aims towards the player. So that way the yaw difference changes, and if needed, a turn in place animation kicks in. So essentially we need to change the base aim rotation. And a simple way to do that is use focus. So if we access an AI controller, then we can use a set focus node, and in a set focus node we plug in an actor. So this will make the AI look at the actor and also stay focused on the actor. So if the actor is moving, the AI will actually follow it. And there is also a node in here that is set focal point. And that's kind of the same thing, although in this case we're simply setting a vector, and that vector or that location will be the focal point for the AI. But again, if the AI starts moving, he will stay focused on that location. So in that case, the controller yaw or the base aim rotation will change to keep the actor focused on that location. So we're going to be using this node to make sure that we can rotate the AI in the correct rotation if we need to. And so we're going to create an event for that. Let's go to an empty spot somewhere, create a custom event, and I'm going to call this RotateTowards. And in here we need to add a vector. So let's give it one input, and that's our focal point. So that's a vector. And then all we want to do inside of the actual function is get the AI controller and set the focal point. So we can get an AI controller. We want to get it of this actor. So let's hook up a reference to ourselves. And then we can drag off here and set a focal point. Plug it in and pass on the vector. So as I mentioned, this sets the focal point, but it keeps it at this location. So what we want to do is simply rotate the character towards this rotation, and then we want to stop applying focus, so that if we start moving, the character just needs to aim forward and mind his own business. So in here we're going to add a retriggerable delay. Oh, really? And our turn in place animation doesn't last any more than 1 second. So let's make it 1 second, and then we're always good in here. And then we're going to drag off the AI controller again, and we need to clear focus. So by then the character should be rotated in the correct rotation, and we're going to clear the focus again. Okay, so with this function we can rotate the character, and now we can test this a little bit using our guard spot. So let's go to event begin play, and at the end we're going to add a little test function. So first of all, let's wait for 2 or 3 seconds so we can grab control of the camera and see what's actually happening. Then we want to get an actor from class, actor of class, and we're going to get our guard spot in the level. And then we simply want to move towards that guard spot, so we can use our AI move to node. So let's drag off the return value, AI move to. So this one, the lower one, the world context object. Well, if we right click and then look for AI move to, select the node, and then we have one pin less to worry about. So now we can plug it in. The pawn is going to be a reference to ourselves. And we want to move to the guard spot, so we're going to plug that into the target actor. And then on success, we want to call our RotateTowards function. And now in here, we need to add a location in the level. So how are we going to do that? We're going to drag off our guard spot, and we want to get the forward vector of the guard spot, so the direction of the arrow that we added. And we also want to get the location of the guard spot. So get actor location. We can grab this forward vector and multiply it. So multiply, right click the lower pin and convert it to an integer. We're going to enter 1000 units in here, and then we're going to add this vector to the actor location. So look for add and add those together. So what we're doing is moving the location 1000 units in front, in the direction of the arrow. And then we can use that as the focal point. So plug that into the RotateTowards function and then compile and save it. So now we should be pretty much good to go to test this. There's one thing I want to do, and that's close this down and go to the animation folder. Open the AimOffsets folder and open the AimOffset. So in here I want to add a little bit of smoothing. So right now if you hold control and move from left to right very quickly, you can see it's really responsive, and this will make the AimOffset really jumpy if we immediately switch the rotation from left to right, for example. So what we can do over here for the horizontal and the vertical axis is add some smoothing time. So I'm going to set this to 0.2 seconds. And then for the vertical axis as well, 0.2 seconds. And if we go down a little bit, we can also add some sample smoothing. So for the weight speed, you can play around with this. If you read the description, if you put it at 1, this means it will take 1 second to blend between weights. And if you put it to 2, it will take half a second. If you put it to 3, it will decrease further. So I'm going to put it at 2 right now. And you can increase it if you want to have less smoothing, or decrease it if you, decrease it if you want to have less smoothing, increase it if you want to have more. So now compile and save that. And we should be good to test this. So if we hit play in the level, then our AI should start walking towards the guard spot. And once it reaches that location, he should be turning towards the actual correct direction. So that's working, as you see. So that's not too bad. And now we could also hook up our focus node and then take a look at the rotation for the AimOffset. So the pitch, for example. So if we go back into the character over here, for the RotateTowards, so this takes 1 second. So this is all just testing setup. Don't worry, we're not going to make an actual messy setup like this with weights and things like that. Right now we just want to test a little bit of movement, and if everything is working as we expected, later we're going to add proper functions. So after the RotateTowards, we're going to wait for 1 second, and then we can hook up our focus test. So if you still have it in the blueprint, you can just grab it. So what we're doing over here is simply getting the player character and then set focus to the player character. So let's plug that in over here after the RotateTowards. And then if we test again, the AI should be aiming at the player once it's up there. So there we go. And as you can see right now, he's following the player, and he's also using his turn in place animations. So that's all working, and all of this stuff should also be working in multiplayer. So make sure if you test it, put it at play as listen server and then use 2 or more players. And then we should be able to have a look over here. So the AI is going to be aiming at the server most likely. So if we grab the client and then move around with the server, you can see for the client, he's also applying the correct aim, pitch, and yaw and turn in place animations. So all of that stuff seems to be working pretty smoothly. Okay, so I think that's going to be all for today. Probably not the longest video, but this is just a good cutoff point. So in the next episode, we're gonna start working on the site detection and probably add the widget above the AI with the progress bar and things like that. So if you like the series, please consider leaving a like, and if you want to get the project files, make sure to become a member and check out the Discord. Thanks for watching everybody, talk to you later, bye bye.